Hello, everybody. I'm coming to you live from this last part of the semester when everybody's getting tired. You are probably so tired of looking at your computer right now, and you've probably gotten sick at least once, and probably you have a little bit of a feeling of the holidays approaching and the sun leaving. And this is a hard time of the semester, not just for students, for everybody. The semester always has this pattern. I speak to this from many years of teaching. So I want to encourage you to just keep on pushing. Don't let yourself drop off right now. You have come too far to drop away at this point. You've got to just buckle down and get this last push in for this class and for all your classes. And so for this class, you know that you have a project coming up where you're going to initiate a change, or you're actually just going to make a plan. So you're going to take all the content that we learned in chapters 7, 8, and 9 about persuasion, attitude, influence, and you're going to apply that in a plan that you're going to make to change an attitude that would lead to a change in behavior. And so I've asked for your topics to be submitted by last night, and I haven't seen quite all of them, but I have some really very fine submissions coming in. I won't list them all for you because I don't want it to take away from your own creativity. So I want you to think about what you see around you, an attitude that you think would most want to change. And you're going to be following the instructions I gave and the template very carefully to apply the content from this last chapter in developing your plan from the last 3 chapters in specific. So before we do that, I have a little fear that I don't know if you know that every time you do a reflection, I write to you, I respond to you in some way. And I hope that you can all see those responses because to me, they feel fairly important to your understanding. So I know that once you click submit, you should be able to, when you go into your gradebook, you should be able to click on your reflection and you'll see a little comment bar on the side of it. You should be able to look at everything. So if you have any trouble with that, please let me know because I'm writing to you every single week if you're doing your work every week. And I'd sure like to know that you can see that. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about some of the important concepts that maybe were a little muddy in some of your reflections and give you some thoughts on that will help you with your presentation. So I'm going to share my screen and jump over to the whiteboard for a minute. And so here we go. So the first topic I wanted to talk to you about is this idea of conformity and groupthink. And you'll recall Ash's study, the very simple studies where he asks a Confederate to tell which line on the left, A, B, or C, is closest in length to the line with the question mark under it. And to all of you, I hope it's obvious, even though I just drew this line and it's not that straight, line B is the correct answer. So under what circumstances would you make the decision to choose, let's say, answer C? And you know what he did in his studies, if you've been paying attention, he had you, the participant, answer after several other people, I guess these guys are all laying down, said C. And so you're looking at this and you're saying, what the heck? This is you. And you're saying, what the heck, you know? And then maybe you decide to say C also. And so if you do that, there are a couple of reasons why you might do it. Why would you say C when B is obviously correct? So let's write that here. Why would you conform? But let's just say, why would you give a wrong answer? And so we'll say there are 2 reasons, primary reasons. All right. One is you thought that you were wrong. You thought the group was right. You thought the group must be right. So you changed your mind. So in other words, you changed your attitude. You changed belief. So that's one reason you could do it. A second reason is that you know the group is wrong, but decide not to rock the boat. You just don't want to cause trouble. You don't want to draw attention to yourself. You just go along with the group because it'll make life easier. And so you can think about both of these impacting groupthink. So groupthink is this idea that when you get together in a big group and someone gets onto an answer to a difficult problem, the rest of the group kind of goes along with it, even if they didn't think that to begin with. So the group converge on an answer that may not be right. And so in this case, this can happen for a couple of reasons. So one is, same thing, decide not to rock the boat. You don't speak up to say that you don't agree with the idea. Maybe you just don't want to cause trouble. Maybe you're an outsider, a member of the out group, and you don't feel your opinion would be welcomed. Maybe you just don't want to bother about it. You don't care about it that much, but for whatever reason, you knew the group was wrong and you decided not to say anything about it. The second thing is that it's more like this. So let's say this one is analogous to B up here, and this answer 2 is going to be analogous to A. And in this case, you come to think the group must be right. You change your mind. You don't think creatively. The group says it's this way, and you just sort of go along with it, and you don't think any further. And sometimes, as one person gave in their example, a strong leader, someone presents themselves as an expert. And so even if you don't agree, you think that that leader must be right. He doesn't allow, or she doesn't allow, room for very much input. So a strong leader puts forward an opinion, an expert view, and others are silenced or lose confidence. And one thing that I shared with a few people is that in some cultures, and maybe in particular among women, there is training all of one's life to be harmonious, to get along. And so this is a value. Along. And so this is a value. We want to get along. And so we want to have harmony. We want to have peace. All right, so let's think about it this way. In what situations is harmony really important? So harmony is important in small matters. In matters that might be about convenience, say, or comfort. Like, what restaurant should we go to? Or should we hang this picture here or there? And so let's say dining choice, maybe home decorating. Things without much consequence. But in some situations, harmony is less important. Here, let's put harmony is more important than outcome. But in other situations, outcome is more important than harmony. So let's picture life and death matters, COVID restrictions. The loudest voice speaking says we shouldn't be cautious about COVID, and then no one dissents, no one has the courage to speak up, maybe more people would get sick. I mean, in the past, when COVID was at its peak, this was really a big deal. Or what about things like environmental protections, or whether we should mine some land or pollute some water with a factory? In that case, harmony is not that important. Outcome is important. Here, outcome matters more. Here, outcome matters more. And so in this case, we need dissenting views. We need people to speak their minds. And so we have to be able to discern which case is it. Are we looking at a case where harmony is more important or where outcome is more important? And in those cases, we have to train ourselves to distinguish the difference and have the courage to act on it. And so that was the first concept I wanted to bring to you. And another one, and I'm going to just move this up, draw a line under it, and talk about one more idea. And the idea is effort justification and attitudes. And we'll also plug rewards in here. So some of you, when you were writing about effort justification, you were writing primarily about effort, but that's not what this is. Effort justification is placing higher value in things that we've worked hard for. So for example, the IKEA effect, you'll remember, was there's a store, might probably be one down by Phoenix, and it sells all these furniture products, but you take them home and you have to build them yourself. So it's build it yourself furniture. And the IKEA effect, if you listen to the little audio thing, showed that people tended to value their furniture more when they built it themselves, even if it was kind of a bad job. So people valued even poorly put together furniture, built furniture if they did it themselves. If DIY, I'll put. All right. And the same is true of many things that we have value in. So if you worked very hard to get to pass a class and you ended up with, let's say, an A- or a B+, and you're usually getting A's, you might actually value this more because you worked harder and you didn't even know if you could pass. And I wanted to share with you a very fine response, worked harder. A very fine response that one of your classmates wrote in her reflection. And so I'll drag it over so that you can see it. This is how she organized her reflection. She said, the best way to use rewards, she underlined her keywords, that was part of the question. Whoops, wrong one. Let's get this one. Effort justification is where you feel compelled to compensate for a difficult task or project by rationalizing that it was actually worth it or actually very appealing, when in reality, you may have endured a lot through that task or project. And then she says, using effort justification, I would value the easy A's less than the difficult A by rationalizing that due to me putting in extra time into the work I did for the difficult class was a more rewarding experience. Effort justification might cause her to say that she learned a lot, that it was rewarding, and she learned about being a hard worker. And then this last example was, I think, a very fine example. An example of effort justification theory I had in my own life would be when I was learning how to first weave rugs. My very first rug was a difficult one, and it took me months to finally finish and insert all of the difficult designs I had envisioned. In the Navajo culture, you are not allowed to draw out the designs you want, and that you need to have it all in your mind. Being a first-time rug weaver, it was rather difficult to strategize how I wanted my design to look, especially planning out how symmetrical it would be. The end product of my very first rug was difficult. However, it is still my prized rug. It's my very first one. It took a lot of time and dedication to even complete it. I used effort justification to tell others how much I adore my very first rug, even though it looked rough and was not perfect, by explaining how I had dedicated months of time and patience into it. So this is a very fine example of effort justification. Now, the second aspect that I wanted to get at in this little mini review was the idea of rewards and attitudes. And so an example that I used in class is, let's say that you remember that Pizza Hut reward thing, maybe some of you experienced it, and it was children. Oh, let me take a different ink color here. Let me go to blue. Children. You will get a Pizza Hut coupon for every book you read. Every 10 books you read. And I was a teacher of children at that time, and the children would read books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 really quickly. But it was sort of funny because first off, they were easy books, even if the children were strong readers because they wanted the coupon. And secondly, it really would turn them off to reading because what happens, and so here's their pizza, right? Okay, and so what happens when the Pizza Hut coupons go away? Well, the children start to think, well, if I am rewarded so much for reading, it must be very awful. I won't do it anymore. Why do it without a reward? And so you can see that the attitude with this big reward, the attitude changed for the worse. If they felt neutral about reading before, now they're saturated with it and they've learned to dislike it. If they felt good about it before, maybe they even aren't so sure anymore. So we have to be careful when we use rewards. And so what your book taught you, and that I'll show you an example of in a minute, is that small rewards proximal to the behavior, near in time to the behavior, work best. And so instead of this Pizza Hut coupon, a much better thing might be if when the child finishes a book, parent and child sit to a glass of cider and talk about the book. First off, it's authentic because you're talking about a book. Maybe the child, it opens up the broach to many conversations and interesting learning. And then secondly, it's just small. It's just a glass of cider and a little bit of your time. And so that's a really nice example of how small rewards proximal to the behavior work best. And I have an example also to share with you here. And it's this one that I started before. The best way to use rewards, this isn't the complete answer, but this is a start of the answer. The best way to use rewards to affect the change of an attitude in my loved ones towards recycling would be by using small rewards over a given time. For instance, let's take my father. He is from the boomer generation and is not raised with the idea that recycling was a good way to protect the environment. He is from a generation where it was common to even burn trash outside rather than take it to the trash dump. If I had wanted to change his attitude, I would introduce recycling to him in a way where we can do it together. The rewards I would be giving him by recycling every week would be through time of bonding between us. I may use these recycling trips as a way of sharing a laugh or going out to eat in town at his favorite restaurant. Over time, his attitude toward recycling would change from something like a useless chore to one where he associates with family and a bonding experience. However, if I had used a larger reward, like paying him $50 to take the recycling into town, it would not change his attitude toward recycling. He would view it as some kind of favor to me, or that he's just doing it because I had paid it to him. And when he is done with completing the task, he may still hold recycling as an unimportant chore. So I thought this was a nice, clean, and very clear example that I would share with you. Now, as you think about your own projects, I want you to be aware that you have to do all of these things. This is kind of a big project in terms of what you have to do for it. So remember, you have to find out about the values of your people. You have to tailor your message toward those individuals. And then you also have to use techniques that will change attitudes. So maybe small rewards. But if you're trying to change, say, faculty mind, you might need to have more of a cognitive approach, a knowledge-based approach. If you're working with teens, maybe you need to have an expert or an authority voice that would be valued by teens. Maybe you need deep messages. Maybe you need shallow messages. Will you be using something like foot in the door or door in the face? Those are both techniques to get people kind of started with a changed behavior. So you're going to have to really think a lot about this social psych content as you prepare your project. And so thanks for tuning in. And once again, my biggest message in all of this, my very biggest message is to not stop at this time. And so my biggest message is don't give up. Keep working. Just put your nose to that grindstone a little bit longer, and you'll have achieved an important goal. And I'm going to give some thought as to whether I can use any of those techniques that we've learned in this chapter to persuade you to keep plugging along and through this work. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch you next time.